In episode 44 of the CySec101 training series, we're going to go through the introduction to the SIEM, which is the Security Information and Event Management tool. It's a very, very powerful tool in cybersecurity. It makes your life extremely easy, or I should say easier than what it could be if you didn't have it. And this is all part of the Security Solutions module. So we've started a new module in our Cybersecurity 101 pathway of TryHackMe. And this is our outline. So we have obviously the introduction, we have the network visibility through SIEM, log sources and log ingestion, why you should even use a SIEM, analyzing logs and alerts. We also have a lab exercise, obviously, that we're going to be doing. And then we have the conclusion, final notes, and I'm going to give you a couple of extra pieces of information. And then that's basically it. And you are done for today or today's training series. So yeah, that's basically it. It's a good one. I'm really excited about this one. I love SIEM tools. SIEM tools really do make your life easier. Imagine if you saw the last video that we did on logs analysis. Imagine having to go through, millions of lines of log items and events and things like that without having a tool that can help you analyze those things and make sense of them and make it user-friendly. Even the most advanced security analysts that are extremely good at their job and they're really good at the command line, they also use SIEMs because it just makes your life easier. And then if it makes your life easier, that means you can respond to incidents faster instead of having to sift and sort through things using the command line or various scripts that you would have to type up. So the SIEM is kind of like the holy grail of security appliances that is available for defensive security. So we're not talking about offensive security. We're currently in the concept of defensive security and how to be a really good cybersecurity analyst. And so that being said, we're going to be talking about the most powerful tool in defensive security, which is the SIEM. If you'd like to support this channel and get access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers: the supporter, agent, guardian, and master, and each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, bug bounties, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me, plus so much more. To join, you can simply click the link in the description below, or you can go to our homepage and click the join button there, or you can go to youtube.com/@hankhackshackers/join, and you'll be able to join Hackaholics Anonymous. Now, without further ado, let us jump into the introduction to SIEM room. What is a SIEM, right? So it stands for the Security Information and Event Management System, and it's a tool that collects data from a variety of different endpoints or logs or sources, anything like that, network devices, whatever. It'll collect logs, collect data from a bunch of different locations, and then it'll store all of that data in a centralized place, being the SIEM tool itself. And then it performs correlation, meaning it actually connects all of the various events that are taking place to try to see if there's some kind of a pattern or some kind of an anomaly, something that's going on that maybe you wouldn't notice if you just looked at one endpoint or if you just looked at one log source. So what we're going to be going through is the basics of this tool. And our goal here, our objectives are to understand what it actually is and how it works, why we should even use it and why it's needed, what network visibility is, and what are the log sources and how log ingestion actually occurs and how it's done, and what the capabilities of a SIEM are and what it actually provides to us as far as functionalities. We did talk about log sources in the last video, so the fundamentals of logging. And if you haven't seen that, I highly encourage you to watch that. It is a powerful video because it'll give you context as to why SIEM tools are so useful. You'll actually see what a log looks like, and we'll go through the various ways that you can kind of analyze a log individually by itself. And then when you see how much time and energy it takes to actually sift and sort through log events, then you'll understand really truly how powerful a SIEM is and why we love it so much in cybersecurity. So these are our objectives. What does SIEM stand for? It stands for Security Information and Event Management. And then the system part, I guess, is also something that we have to include over here. But SIEM just by itself is Security Information and Event Management. To really understand why SIEMs are powerful, we need to first understand what network visibility is and why we need to have really good visibility on a network. So this is a version, like a very basic network. So let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. So this is, we have the internet, right? The internet at large, the World Wide Web. And then this is your router. That is the thing that connects your network to the internet. And inside of this specific network, there's a data server, there's a web server, there are, 50 Windows workstations, and there are 20 Linux workstations. So it's actually a pretty big environment, relatively big. I mean, it doesn't have thousands of endpoints, I understand, but it's relatively big. It's not a small office, especially if they have 70 different workstations and a data server and a web server. This is probably a few different I would say few different floors inside of a building, which means that they probably have a router and multiple switches. And so this would be one segment of the network. This would be another segment of the network. And then maybe even the web server and the data server have their own individual switches, maybe, or maybe at the very least they have one switch that breaks these things out, and then they have virtual LANs, meaning logical segmentations of their network, either or. But ultimately, I think they will have at least more than one router. But for simplicity, or at least they will have more than the router, and they will have a switch as well, including the router. But again, for simplicity, we're just going to look at it this way. So this is the visibility of your network, right? You get to see what is inside of the network. Now, as we know, each network component can have one or more log sources generating different logs. One example could be setting up a sysmon, which is a system monitor, along with the Windows event logs to have better visibility of the Windows endpoint. And we can divide the network logs into two logical parts. You have the host-centric, which actually is on the machine itself, right? So the host right here, each one of these Linux workstations, each one of these Windows workstations is a host. So if there's 50 Windows workstations, that means there's 50 hosts, right? So that's a host-centric log source, meaning it's actually coming from that specific host. And some of the log sources that generate host-centric are the Windows event logs, sysmon, OS query. OS query is actually developed by I want to say Facebook or Meta now. They were the ones that developed this very interesting query type of language to actually query the operating system based on the different events that happen on the operating system. So it's actually really nice. There is a video on the channel about it, so you can go check that out if you want to. Some examples of the host-centric logs are a user accessing a file, a user attempting to authenticate, a process execution activity, process adding, editing, deleting a registry key or value, PowerShell execution. These are all for Windows machines. These are specific to Windows machines, but this is again host-centric. Like any of these events taking place happen on the host, therefore a log item or an event is generated on the logs for that host. Okay, so host-centric is for the individual machine, right? The individual computer or server, etc. Then we have the network-centric. Now, network-centric, as the name implies, it's generated when the hosts, so all of the hosts, communicate with each other or access the internet to visit a website. And some network-based protocols are the secure shell, the virtual private network, hypertext transfer protocol, or the secure version of that, file transfer protocol, etc. So it's essentially any protocol that allows you to communicate with other devices on your network or other devices on other networks across the World Wide Web, across the internet, okay? So the SSH connection, for example, is secure shell connection, which is basically an encrypted connection that allows you to remotely connect to another machine and then use that machine, right? Interact with that machine remotely via an encrypted connection. A file being accessed via the FTP protocol, which is not encrypted. It's an unencrypted version of the file transfer. Then we have web traffic, using the web server or the web browser to go to Google or to YouTube or something like that. A user accessing company resources through the virtual private network, which is another encrypted channel where you can access something remotely. And then we have the network file sharing activity, which is basically what this server that we see right here, this data server that we see right here, this could technically be a network file share as well, where somebody that connects to this network remotely can actually access the data from this data server. And then even the people obviously inside of the network should be able to access the data from that data server. So there's a lot of different sources of logs, basically. That's kind of what we're talking about here. So if you can imagine, for each host, there's probably over, I would say easily over a dozen different log sources, because not only are there the security logs and the system logs, there's actually logs for each application that you use. So there would be, an Internet Explorer log. There would be the background applications that you would use, and literally every application essentially logs its activities as well. And then same thing for the network. There's so many protocols that exist on a network that you have the authentication logs, you have the individual protocols logs themselves, because if it's enough traffic that's being generated on SSH, then they would generate a specific SSH log, because there are so many line items, so many events that go on inside of SSH that it's like, okay, well, we can't have this mixed with, the FTP logs, right? We need to have this standalone by itself, because it's just generating too many log items. So therefore it needs to have its own log. And so if you think about it like that, then technically each protocol could actually have its own freaking log item or log file. And again, it just becomes it becomes a lot of different sources of events and data that a person would need to keep track of if they had to do it manually. So when you think about all of these different sources, this is why the SIEM is so important. So it's time to understand why the SIEM is actually that important. And this is the SIEM. So let's look at this image. So this is the SIEM itself, right? So it collects the data from all of those sources that we just talked about. It aggregates that data, and it discovers and detects any kind of threat that may be found or kind of noticed inside of that data. And then it helps you identify breaches and investigate alerts. This is not done by the SIEM. This is done by the security analyst that's going on. But the SIEM will definitely discover and detect potential threats, and it'll send you alerts and say, hey, listen, I feel like there's something going on. Maybe it's a false positive, but I think there's something going on. You need to look at this further. And so it does all of that for you by looking at all of the logs from across your network and from your hosts and endpoints and all of that. And then it ingests all of that in one location. It aggregates and correlates that data and just makes your life so much easier. So all of these devices generate hundreds of events per second, which means thousands upon thousands of events. And examining the IMG logs on each device one by one in the case of an incident can be a tedious task. That is the advantage of a SIEM. It not only takes logs from various sources in real time, but also provides the ability to correlate between events, search through the logs, investigate incidents and respond to them promptly. And these are some of the key features. So there's real-time log ingestion, alerting against abnormal activities, 24/7 monitoring, visibility, protection against the latest threats through early detection, data insights and visualization, and of course the ability to investigate past incidents by looking at various log files that have already happened, and then you're just looking at those logs inside the SIEM to help you organize the data and manage the data easier. So is the registry related activity host centric or network centric? And so the registry is individual or it's directly connected to each individual host, because each host has its own registry. So this is a host-centric activity. Is a VPN-related activity host-centric or network-centric? That would be network-centric, because through a VPN, a virtual private network, through that VPN connection, you get an encrypted connection to your network or various network devices, so you can connect to your network remotely, and that would be a network activity. So now let's look at the log sources and log ingestion. So as we already talked about, there are various log sources, obviously. So, things that if you visit a website, that's something. Connecting to SSH, that's something. Logging into your actual computer, all of these things are various events, and they belong to different categories of logs, right? So some of the common devices that are found in a network environment could be our obviously the log sources that we have. So within the Windows machine, for example, there are going to be different logs. And so all of those logs would technically be considered, let's say, micro sources, right? The Windows machine itself, the Windows computer would be the source, the host. And then within that host, there would be a bunch of other sources of logs as well. So Windows records every event that can be viewed through the event viewer utility, and we did that in the last video, so go check it out if you haven't seen it already. And then it assigns a unique ID to each type of log activity, which makes it easy for the analyst to examine and keep track of. There are literally thousands of IDs, event IDs, that belong to Windows machines. So to view events in the Windows environment, we type event viewer in the search bar, which we did in the last video. And then it's basically, this is what it looks like. It's kind of, I mean, it's a graphical interface, but this doesn't do what a SIEM would actually do, because a SIEM also has a graphical interface. It's just that in this view, what you're seeing is that this entire list that you see, these are all of the application logs that are being generated, which is massive. There are so many freaking logs inside of just a Windows machine, right? And the same thing applies to everything that goes on inside of a Linux machine as well. So literally, you know, he's closing all of these little drop downs, and you can see the custom view if you wanted to. You can look at the Windows logs, which has these main categories. And if you click on the application log or the setup log or the security log, you can see all of these events that are generated inside of it, right? But then when you go specific to the applications, if you actually go do the drop down for the applications, there are so many freaking log sources that you can look at, because each application literally, so he clicks on Microsoft here, clicks on system, and then he opens up the Windows portion of it, and look at, I mean, these are all different log sources. This is kind of crazy to think about. So imagine if you had to do this manually, if you had to go through every single one of these things manually. It's insane. It's so time consuming, so energy consuming, and it'll drive you crazy. Then there's the Linux computer, which is, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, really. It doesn't have a graphical interface the way that we see in the event viewer right here. Everything is actually stored inside of it also depends on, I would say it depends on the distribution of Linux that you are using, because some Linux distributions do actually have a desktop, like a graphical user interface, but the logs themselves are stored inside of the file system hierarchy. So if we go inside of the var, however you want to pronounce that, if we go inside the var partition, and then inside of that we have the log directory, and then inside of the log directory there's the httpd cron authentication log, and then the security log, the kernel log. There's just so many freaking log sources, right? So this is what the cron log, I guess, looks like. Let me see if we can even, oh, I see. It's like it's a different color. So these are the individual log items inside of the cron log, which is it's the scheduled activities, right? The scheduled events that are usually inside of your cron tabs, inside of your cron logs, or your cron jobs. Those are typically what is stored over here, and they are viewed as such. So there's essentially a line dedicated to each event that goes on, and then if you have a big enough system or a busy enough system, it's going to have thousands of lines of items that you would have to somehow sort through. And when it comes down to Linux, we use command line tools like grep or awk or whatever we possibly can to essentially search for the individual events that we are interested in inside of all of these events, because there are so many of them. Okay, it just becomes crazy when you think about it, and it's terrifying. Like like the thought of it is overwhelming just by itself. And then there's the web server log, and the web server log is very similar to the stuff that you see on Linux, because it actually has individual log items or log lines that are associated with each individual event. And then there's one for, depending on whatever web server model or version you're using, there would be something for that. So there's the Apache log. If you have an Apache web server, there's the HTTP log that essentially logs everything that happens through your hypertext transfer protocol. So this is the one individual log item, or I guess two log items here that we see for as a part of the Apache log. So you have all of that stuff, right? You have all these various sources. So what needs to happen is that those sources need to get ingested. So each one of these things, think about it as a source, right? This is a Windows machine. This seems to be a database. This is a Linux machine. This is another database server. Maybe this is not a database. I don't know what this notebook is supposed to represent, but this is definitely like a MySQL kind of a database. This is another Windows machine. This is the web server, right? So you have all of these things that are feeding into the SIEM, and the SIEM will ingest all of those things. So the logs provide a lot of information, and it can help in identifying issues, and each SIEM solution has its own way of ingesting the logs. Some of the common methods are used via these different approaches that we have. So the first one could be the agent or the forwarder. And so these types of solutions provide a lightweight tool called an agent that in the world of Splunk is like one of the big names with SIEM tools. Splunk calls it a forwarder, right? And then the agent or the forwarder gets installed in the endpoint, meaning it'll get installed on the Linux computer or it'll get installed on the Windows computer. So each individual endpoint will have either an agent or a forwarder that's installed on it, and it's configured to capture all the important logs and send them to the SIEM server, and the SIEM server will then ingest all of that information. Syslog is a widely used protocol to collect data from various systems like web servers, databases, etc. And these are sent in real time to the centralized destination, again being the SIEM tool. Manual upload would just be, most, if not all, SIEM solutions will actually allow you to manually upload something. So these allow users to ingest offline data for quick analysis, and then once the data is ingested, it is normalized and then made available for analysis. So in order for this to work, right, in order for the agent forwarder concept to work, these computers actually have to be connected to the internet. They have to be connected at the very least to your network, so they need to be online. When you say that something is offline, that means you're just capturing the events from that machine without it being connected to the network. And then from there, that's going to you're going to just transfer those files to the SIEM solution, and then the SIEM solution will then ingest the log items and those data files. And then we have port forwarding, that is essentially kind of like another concept similar to the agent or the forwarder. But what happens is that each individual port on your source, on your main system, is going to be forwarded to the SIEM. So you can configure the SIEM to listen on a certain port, and then the endpoints forward the data to the SIEM instance on that listening port. An example of how Splunk provides various methods is like this. So this is kind of basically the dashboard. You can either upload a file, you can monitor files and ports on the Splunk platform instance, or you can forward data using one of the forwarders that would be installed on your individual hosts. So the question that we have here is, in which location within a Linux environment are HTTP logs stored? So that would be the var log httpd directory, which is right here. And that's the only question that we had here. Okay, so let's talk about why we should use SIEM tools. Apart from ingesting data, the SIEM correlates the data. So whatever data is collected, it is actually correlated through the SIEM's capabilities. So once a threat is detected or a certain threshold is crossed, an alert is raised, and this alert enables the analyst to take suitable actions based on the investigation. And the SIEM plays an important role in cybersecurity and helps us detect and protect against the latest threats in a timely manner, and it provides good visibility of what's happening within the network infrastructure. So the major component of a security operations center is the SIEM. It's like one of the major ones, if not the major one. And SIEM starts by collecting logs and examining if the event flow has matched the conditions set in the rule or crossed a certain threshold. So some of these things would be correlating between events from different log sources, providing visibility on both host-centric and network-centric activities, allowing the analyst to investigate the latest threats and timely responses, and hunting for threats that are not detected by the rules that we have in place. So that's actually another really, really key thing. It's kind of like an AI tool, a little bit. At the very least, like a machine learning tool. So when you have a security operations center, you have all of these different elements or these different activities that need to be done in order for the security operations center to be effective. So you can have log collection, establishing a knowledge base, doing research and development on what's going on within those logs, aggregating and correlating the events inside those logs, using threat intelligence sources, whether from your internal sources or from some kind of an external source like the MITRE attack matrix, for example. And then you have the security information and event management tool. And then you have the reporting and, of course, creating support tickets and responding to those tickets. So all of these things happen at a security operations center. And so you have these and every single one of them is important, by the way. So this is not to say that one thing is more important than another thing. This is just to say that the SIEM tool is a critical element through the processes, through the workings of a security operations center. So the SOC analyst's responsibilities, which is you, right? You ultimately end up becoming the security operations center analyst that utilizes the SIEM solution in order to have better visibility of what's happening within the network. And some of these things include monitoring, investigating, identifying false positives, which is when the SIEM says, hey, I think there's something wrong. And then you look at it and you're like, oh no, that wasn't actually anything wrong. This guy just came back from vacation and he forgot his password. So he kept trying different passwords and it got locked out, right? So this wasn't an attack that somebody was trying to hack into a system. This was just somebody that literally forgot their password. So tuning rules which are causing the noise or false positives. So after something like that happens, you need to adjust the optimization of the SIEM tool so that you don't get as many false positives or noise that will make your output, your data busy, and then now you're stuck trying to analyze all the nonsense stuff when real damage might potentially be happening and you're missing that stuff because there's just too much noise. And then there's reporting and compliance, identifying blind spots in the network visibility and covering them. These are all of the responsibilities of the SOC analyst, okay? So your SIEM tool will actually allow you to have better visibility as a SOC analyst, and it'll allow you to do all of these things more efficiently and effectively. So the question that we have here, oh, it's not even a question, it just says read it. So we just read it. So congratulations. We did great here. So now let's look at analyzing logs and alerts. The analysis part and the alert generation part is essentially where SIEM tools really shine. That analysis portion of it, I mean, if you consider the fact that sometimes there are dozens, if not hundreds, of different sources of logs that are being fed into the SIEM, and then the SIEM ingests all of that and starts analyzing it in real time in a live environment, that's a very, very powerful tool. It's a very heavy load that really the SIEM thing is actually doing, and it requires really good processing power. So that's the other thing, is like there's an actual server that you're setting up for Splunk, for example, in order for this to actually work, in order for Splunk to properly work. And Splunk needs really strong CPUs and GPUs and all of those things, RAM, all of that is very, very necessary for Splunk to work efficiently in a real-time environment and work quickly, right? So once all of those logs are ingested and the SIEM looks for unwanted behavior or any kind of suspicious pattern within those logs, with the help of conditions that are set in the rules that we create as analysts. And if the condition is met, a rule is triggered and the incident is investigated. The dashboard of your SIEM tool is where a lot of the data, a lot of the highlights, I guess, kind of like the overview snapshots of the data is presented to the analyst. And you can customize your dashboard to actually get any kind of data that you think is relevant. And this is one of the most important components of the SIEM because it makes literally it ingests all of these freaking data sources, like millions and millions of events that are taking place, and it just puts them in a really nice, cool dashboard with cool little graphs and all these different things so that you can analyze the data, right? And after it's been normalized and ingested, and normalization really means that it's making it human readable and understandable, and it's taking all of the various data points of each event, because each event has data points, right? So it has the source IP address, destination IP address, the timestamp, and any other data that might be relevant for that event. It'll ingest all of those individual data points and it'll categorize them, and it says these are all of the source IP addresses and these are all of the destination IP addresses. These are all of the timestamps, like the range of event times that is taking place for this thing. These are all the commands that were executed, etc. So it normalizes all of that data after it's been obviously ingested, right? And then so the summary of these analyses is presented in the form of actionable insights with the help of multiple dashboards. And each solution, each SIEM solution, comes with some default dashboards and provides an option for custom dashboard creation. And some of the information that can be found in a dashboard are the highlights of your alerts, system notifications, health alert, list of failed login attempts, events ingested, count, rules that have been triggered, top domains that were been visited. And this is what an example dashboard in QRadar looks like. So QRadar is from IBM, a very powerful source, and QRadar is used by a lot of different organizations as well. And this is literally what a dashboard looks like. It actually has the list of the system notifications that we have over here. We have the inbound traffic by configuration or total bytes, essentially, that has been done right here, or not configuration, excuse me, country or region. My brain went somewhere else. So the inbound traffic by country or region, and it's the total amount of bytes that each country or region is presenting and processing. We have the top applications and the total bytes for each one of those applications. So, you have your web, your miscellaneous domains, ICMP destination, etc. And then you have the DSCP precedence total bytes that is available over here. And can I go lower than this? I feel like I can't see the lower piece right here for the legend to actually be processed. And then the top services denied through firewalls, which there's nothing here, which is great. Outbound traffic by country or region. And then we can see the amount of traffic that's leaving the networks that are configured for this specific organization. And this is on the dashboard, right? So this is a one shot, like in one screen, you get to see what you can do. And then you can create a new dashboard over here. You can rename your dashboard. You can delete a dashboard. You can add an item to your dashboard and just organize it. You would click on this and then you would drag and drop that piece right here to a different location if you needed to, just to make it as simple for you as possible. So in this drop down that you see right here, this is the application overview. If you click that, you would also see a variety of other types of views that you can look at, a variety of other types of data sets or data points that you can look at. So there's a lot of really, really powerful stuff that you can just get from one little screen that allows you all of these data points that have been generated. Technically, I mean, literally when you look down here, it's kind of being blocked off by this thing, so I'm just going to zoom out. It says United States, Netherlands, Pakistan, Ireland, and whatever other countries that have outbound traffic, right? So that means that this specific company has locations in all of those countries, which means there are thousands, if not millions, of data points that are being ingested by QRadar in this one screenshot that you see right here. And then from here, it's actually just processing that data for you and then presenting it in this beautiful little manner. So over here, we see that the total bytes, or at this specific 1:30 a.m. Portion, the total bytes have exceeded 40 million bytes. That's a lot of bytes, believe it or not, right? So again, a lot of really, really useful information. Correlation rules play an important role in the timely detection of threats following analysis, or allowing analysis to take action on time, so immediately, ideally. Correlation rules are pretty much logical expressions that are to be triggered when something happens. So a few examples of this could be if a user gets failed login attempts, or 5 failed login attempts in 10 seconds, it raises an alert for multiple failed login attempts. Because if they do 5 failed login attempts in 2 minutes or in 5 minutes, it's like, okay, maybe it's a human being that's sitting there and they're trying to think about all the different passwords that they have. If it's in 10 seconds, that means there's some kind of an automation tool that's being used to try to brute force a login. Typically, that's what the rule implies, right? So if a user gets 5 failed login attempts, you need to raise an alert for multiple failed login attempts. If a login is successful after multiple failed login attempts, raise an alert for successful login after multiple login attempts. A rule is set to alert every time a user plugs in a USB, and it's useful if the USB is restricted as per the company policy, right? So if the company policy says you cannot insert any kind of a USB into our computers, and then somebody actually plugs in a USB, that is an alert. If outbound traffic is greater than 25 megabytes, raise an alert to potential data exfiltration attempt. Usually it depends on the company policy, because sometimes people may say, you know what, hey, we need to, like if it's a media production company and they need to attach media files to their cloud drive, their external drive, then it's like, all right, so probably media files are going to be larger than 25 megabytes. But if you don't deal in media, and if you're just dealing with documents and things like that, and you see that outbound traffic is greater than 25 megabytes, I mean, do you know how much a megabyte is when you're looking at text? It's like, it's so much data. If it's just text, that means there's something going on. There's a lot of data that's being extracted, and we need to figure out why this data is being extracted. So correlation rules are created in a variety of different ways by a variety of different methods and people and scenarios. We have this use case, which adversaries tend to remove the logs during the post-exploitation phase to remove their tracks, and a unique event ID 104 is logged every time a user tries to remove or clear event logs. So you can create a rule based on this activity, and you can do it by using the event ID. So if the log source is Windows event log and the event ID is 104, then you trigger an alert saying event log has been cleared. So this is the rule, right? If the logs are, now obviously it doesn't read like this. It's not if the log source is this. You literally, it's the parameters and the queries we'll see them inside of this the exercise that we're going to do, but it doesn't read like a full sentence right here. It's just that this is the description that we have for the rule that's being created. The word and is an operator that typically is used, so you will actually see the word and inside of the rule, and you will see like event ID equals 104, not is 104. So this is not the actual syntax of the rule that's created, but it's just explaining what the rule does. Use case number 2 would be adversaries use commands like who am I after the exploitation privilege escalation phase, and the following fields will be helpful to include the rule. So the log source, identify the log source capturing the event ID, which event ID is associated with the process execution activity. In this case, event ID 4688 will be helpful because it executes a specific process. And the new process name, which process name will be helpful to include in the rule. So the rule then would outline something like, if the log source is Windows event log and the event code is 4688 and the new process name contains who am I, then trigger an alert that says who am I command execution detected, right? And who am I, usually if it's like a normal user, they're not going to say who am I because they know who they are. It's like, oh, okay, my username is, Hank Hackerson, right? You don't need to run who am I to see who I am. And that's the thing that is like an immediate red flag. Is like, why are you even running who am I? Like, shouldn't you already know your freaking username? Like, and most users, honestly, unless like you're a tech person, somebody in IT, they're not even aware of the command who am I. So it's like, wait, so somebody in marketing is running who am I on their command line? Like, what? Why are you even doing that? So in the previous task, the importance of the field value pairs were discussed. Correlation rules keep an eye on the values of certain fields to get triggered. That is the reason why it is important to have normalized logs ingested, because those field value pairs is where normalization occurs, right? So there's a field like command, for example, or a new process, whatever. And the value for that would be who am I. There's a field called event ID or event code, and the value for that would be 4688. So this is where the combination occurs. Log source is the field, right? And then the value would be Windows event log, right? So it's things like that. So there's then the alert investigation that takes place. So when monitoring the SIEM, analysts spend most of their time on a dashboard as it displays various key details about the network in very summarized ways. Once an alert is triggered, the event flows or the events or the flows are associated with the alerts are examined, and the rule is checked to see which conditions are met. Based on the investigation, the analyst determines if it is a true or a false positives. Some of the actions that are performed are the alert is false alarm, so it may require tuning the rule to avoid similar false positives from occurring again, so you don't waste your time on it. The alert is a true positive, so perform further investigation and see what actually is going on. Contact the asset owner to inquire about the activity. Suspicious activity is confirmed, isolate the infected host, and block the suspicious IP address. So if it's a false alarm, you do this. If it's a true positive, the very next step is to contact whoever that user is, that, they were trying to log in as John Smith, and then there were multiple failed logins as John Smith. So we need to contact John Smith and be like, hey, did you just do this right now? And then he goes, no, I didn't do that. It's like, oh, okay, so this is suspicious. We now have an issue that we need to worry about. We're going to isolate your host. We're going to cut off your host from the internet, right? We're going to remove any kind of network ability from your computer because we don't want this to spread to the rest of our network. And then from that, we block the suspicious IP address that was trying to do that. So which event ID is generated when event logs are removed? And that was the 104 event ID that we saw in our notes here. And what type of alert may require tuning? And that is the false alarm or the false positive. And that is it. So now we can actually look at our lab work. For this specific lab exercise, we actually don't have any kind of a scenario. That just says that there's a lab attached and a sample dashboard, and events are displayed. When a suspicious activity happens, an alert is triggered, which means that some events match the condition of the rules. Complete the lab and answer all of these questions. And this is actually a free room. I should have probably mentioned this at the top of the video. So anybody can actually get access to this room and run this exercise, which I should have totally mentioned this at the beginning. But yeah, if you just have a basic user account with TryHackMe, you can actually run the lab that we have over here and go through all the exercises that we have. So let's actually jump into the lab itself. So it says we see a typical SIEM dashboard. Click on each visualization to receive more detailed explanation of what the visualization is displaying. So here's our activity. We see all these things right here. Remote desktop connections, the top 5 that you see right here. There's 4 IP addresses that are actually displayed here. We have the top 10 event codes that we see right here. The number of events, the MITRE ATT&CK framework data that we see right here. I don't know what I just did. Let me see what that does. Oh, this is the MITRE ATT&CK TTP matching. So the MITRE ATT&CK framework, so the techniques, tactics, and procedures that are associated by the MITRE ATT&CK matrix. So these are actual things that if you see something over here, that means that there's something going on. So the technique, which is the commonly used port 11%, I guess it doesn't show me anything extra for that, but that's basically what this specific element does. The process names that have been running, the IP and port destinations that are also running over here. So let's see, start the suspicious activity, and let's see what actually happens here. And so it says potential crypto miner activity observed. Find and click on the triggered event to show the details. And crypto miner is what it sounds like. Somebody actually has a crypto mining software that's installed on this computer, and they're now using the ability of this computer, the processing power of this computer, to actually mine cryptocurrency and then transfer it to their cryptocurrency wallet. So let's find that event. So let's see where it is right here. So Kudo miner is the executable that has been launched. So we're going to open that. And now it says, look through the event log to find the event that triggered the alert. So let's actually find that event, and we can scroll right to actually find more information about this. So we have the process creation, event ID, severity is all info, new process ID, Windows event logs, audit success. All these things are exactly the same. So if we go further to the right here, we have the host names that are available, the user names that are available, the process names that are available. And this is the one that stands out because it actually has the Kudo miner inside of its path. And that's basically it. So this is the one, and it's on the channel THM SIEM. So we're going to click on that, and it says good work. Click the below button to show the rule that triggered it. And so this is it. So this is what an actual rule looks like. So we want to generate an alert. That's what we want to do. And the alert name is going to be potential crypto miner activity, which is what we actually saw. If the event ID is 4688, and you can see that event ID equals 4688. So this is the field, and this is the value. And this field, the log source, equals the Windows event logs. and the process name has some kind of minor or some kind of crypt in it. So when you see asterisk, that means it's a wildcard character. So anything in front of it or anything behind it that actually has the word minor in it somewhere. So we had kudo minor or whatever it was, or crypt, right? As long as anything before it or anything after it, as long as there's something crypt in the name, then the process name is something that needs to be triggered. So then we can say, you can see right here, crypt, right? Crypto minor, all of these things are actually a part of the alert. And then the event ID is 4688 because it starts a new process. The log source is Windows events, and the process name has the word minor in it somewhere, or it has the word crypt in it somewhere. So how would you like to action this rule? We are going to say this is a true positive, and we want to isolate the host. And that is our flag for this exercise. So let's look at the exercises here, right? So click on start suspicious, which process caused the alert? That was the kudo minor executable, and we can see that minor is in the name of the executable. Find the event that caused the alert, which user was responsible for the process execution. So Chris Fort, I guess I didn't see that one. So let me see if I can save this action. Can we restart this? Let's see if we can restart it. I guess I can't restart it, but Chris Fort was the username. I'll just refresh the page and then we can probably find it that way. I just want to see where that information was, just in case you need to be able to find it for yourself. So we're going to do view site one more time, and then we're going to go over here. We're going to start activity, and then we're going to click on where is it? So there we go, start suspicious activity, and it's going to be found down here. So kudo minor, there we go. Excellent. So there we go. We're going to move forward here, and you saw that it's a potential crypto miner, right? You saw that right there. So then we clicked on start the activity, or let me do this one more time, and there we go. Okay, so let's look through this and try to find it. So this is the event that was over here that actually has the kudo miner executable, and this is the user. So the username is Chris Fort that we see right there. So there we go. We got Chris Fort. What is the host name of this suspected user? So if we go over here, the host name, which is the computer that has been assigned to him, is the HR02. So this is actually one of the HR computers that was assigned, and that's one of the hosts. And so what do we have here? Examine the rule in suspicious process. Which term matched the rule that caused the alert? And so we had the rule that said if there's something called minor, right? So if there was an actual minor or crypt inside of it, and inside of that specific name, the kudo minor had the term minor in it. Therefore, that is why the rule was actually triggered. And then so what is the best option that represents it? Choose the following. It is actually a true positive, as we saw, and then selecting the right action will display the flag, which is what we saw right here. So this is very, very, very powerful. If you go through the last video that we did, then you will see just how easy a SIEM makes our job for detecting something that's going on, because the SIEM gave us the alert right on the screen and say, hey, listen, it was flashing red, right? It's like, hey, this is an event of note, click on this event. And then you start analyzing the event a little bit and you see, oh, you know what, this actually has been triggered by this rule. And we look at it a little bit further and you say, oh, nope, this is actually a true positive. And then you go ahead and flag it as a true positive, and then you block whatever the IP address was that are trying to access Chris Fort's computer, so it makes your life extremely easy. And this is the end of this particular video. There's multiple other rooms and videos that have been dedicated to this, and I actually have all of these videos on the channel, so you can go look at the Junior SOC Analyst or the Splunk one, or not. It's not called Splunk 101 or Splunk 102, but if you search for Splunk, you'll actually be able to find those videos. There's also the benign video. All of these things are actually on the channel. So if you're interested in learning more about using various SIEM tools, then I highly recommend you go check it out. There's a lot of stuff. It's the SOC 1 or the SOC Level 1 playlist that houses all of these different videos. And again, they're just super useful. If you plan on being in cybersecurity, this would be kind of the next thing that you would do. So if you want to finish the CySec101 playlist first, because we still do have several other modules for security solutions and the rest of this specific pathway, if you want to do that first, you're more than welcome to do that first. But if you want to kind of go do some independent studying outside of the CySec101 playlist, then you can absolutely go ahead and do that as well, and you'll be able to get access to that information. So that is it for our video today. Let me give you some final notes and we'll be out of here. If you'd like to get more from this channel, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out, especially in the CySec 101 pathway. We also have the AI for cybersecurity that's coming out. We have Network Plus that's coming out. So all of these things are going to be available within a short period of time, and you want to get notified when those videos come out. You can also drop a comment and ask a question if you have anything along those lines, and if you just want to say hi, you can do all that as well. But definitely make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out on the channel. If you'd like to support this channel and get access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers: the Supporter, Agent, Guardian, and Master, and each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The Agent, Guardian, and Master levels get exclusive content, Python automations, exclusive downloads, bug bounties, live streams with me every single month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below, or you can go to our homepage and click the join button there, or you can go to youtube.com/@HankHacksHackers/join, and you'll be able to join Hackaholics Anonymous. I hope I see you in the Discord chats and the Discord servers. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section, and that's it. So boy, Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker/protector. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.